Hi loves and welcome to the channel. I'm Waki and today we'll be making this beautiful rectangular flay top. It doesn't require a lot of fabric and it can be done in less than 2 hours. But before we jump right in, if you've not done so, to like, subscribe and comment, please kindly do so as this will help the video to get recommended to more people. Thank you. So for this project, I'll be making use of 2 yards of Ankara fabric, 1.5 yards of lining fabric, 1 yard of haste, zip, some pins and a matching color of string. I have my front, back and sleeve patterns already drafted. I'm making use of the NATALIE Brays basic bodice block, so you can go ahead and draft your. You can use any other basic body pattern, it's totally fine. We are going to start by modifying the back pattern. So you can see from the center back I've gone in by half an inch and I'm connecting it to the edge of the top line. Then from that point again I'm going up by half inch and I'm going to rule a line from that point to the edge of the side, as you can see. So those two lines are slightly diagonal and it will help to control the fullness at those points. This is very useful for people that have narrow backs. So once you are done, as you can see, I've shaded those parts and I'm cutting them out. While drafting my basic bodice, I added the zipper allowance alongside. So I'll be remarking my zipper allowance measurement, which is 2 inches, because of the diagonal line I cut out earlier. The line I'm drawing now is my new zipper allowance and I'm going to be labeling it as such. When we are cutting out the fabric and attaching the zip, we are going to take note of the grain of the fabric to make sure it follows that same diagonal line. We'll be explaining that later. For the front, I'm not going to use the shoulder dart, so I've just folded it and taped at that point. I'll be making use of a princess dart, so follow along. Go ahead and mark your nipple to nipple measurements for the dart points. I'm using 9 cm for this project and I'm making it about 15 cm long. While drafting the NATALIE Brays pattern, there is usually the front inset. So I've marked that measurement on the armhole parts, as you can see. If you are using another bodice pattern, just measure the outer edge of that front bodice armhole, divide it by 2, then add half an inch and mark that point on the armhole. When I was done with that, I joined it using my curved ruler. Now at the waist, I'm going to measure the width of my dart on either side. I'm using 1.5 cm each and I've connected that point to the center. At this point, I'm cutting it out, and if you've observed well, I've marked inset points or a guideline so that when I'm sewing the princess darts together to help me align properly. I'm taping back the shoulder dart since it's not going to be used in this project. Now for the neckline, it's important we make an adjustment to it because it's deep and we do not want our blouse gaping from the neck. Start first by marking the neck depth and neck width. For this project, I'm using 4 inches as the neck width while 7 inches is the neck depth. I've joined it using a straight line. Once I was done, from where my shoulder dart stops, I've drawn a line to the neckline. Once you are done with the drawing of that line, I'm taking in 1/8 of an inch from either side, or you can do 0.2 to 0.3 cm on both sides. When you are done with that, connect the neckline as shown. If you want it deeper, you can decide to take it down a bit, just like I did. And I'm using my paper scissors to cut this out. When you are done with the cutting out, there will be room at the edge for you to fold in that dart. Just fold in by the darts you marked earlier and it will help control the excess room at the neckline. And since I used 4 inches for the width at the front, I'll be using the same as the width for the back so that the shoulders will match. I'll proceed to drawing in the neckline using my French curve. I folded in the back before cutting out because while drafting the pattern I added my seam allowance, so please take note of that. I'm done with the front and back patterns of the dress. At this juncture we'll be moving over to the peplum parts. But before cutting, we are going to be establishing the length and width of the peplum. As you can see on the design of the blouse, the width of the blouse is actually longer than the length, so we'll be taking note of that while drafting. My desired length is 8 inches, while desired width is 16 inches. Of course, you can tweak these values to suit your taste, but this is what worked for me. The top part of this rectangular peplum is going to be circular, so we'll be sewing the circular parts to the upper bodice. And to determine the radius of the circle we are going to be using to cut the upper parts, we are going to use the simple formula. Radius of a circle equals to the total waist measurement divided by 6.28. I called it the total waist measurement because you are going to be adding your usual waist measurement, in my case is 28 inch, to the seam allowance, which was 1.5 inches on each side. That will be 3 inches. I'll ignore the sewing allowance because I'll not be joining my peplum at the side. But if you'll be doing so, make sure to add the seam allowance as well. Hence, my total waist measurement is 28 inches plus 3 inches, which is equals to 31 inches. The length and width of fabric required is displayed on the screen, so please check it out. It is very easy to follow. Once I'm done cutting out that portion of fabric, I'll start by folding lengthwise like you've seen before folding crosswise. Ensure that the folded part is where you place your tape and mark, not the raw edge. And then mark the value of your radius, which was 4.93 inches in my case, around, and make into a circle. As you can see, I'm just measuring around the edge of my circular, and I'll multiply the value by 4. When I multiplied it, it gave me my total waist measurement. Go ahead and cut it out using your scissors and open it up. I've folded it to make the shorter side this way, and I'll use my scissors to cut out only one layer of that part. Make sure it's in the middle. Please do not cut on the two layers. I've reconfirmed the measurement after cutting out, and it has given me the desired measurement. Then let's move over to cutting out the front bodies. Using the front bodice I prepared earlier, I've pinned it on the fabric, but before doing so I studied the pattern of the fabric. I made sure to arrange because I needed the vertical designs to show. And once I'm done pinning, I'm going to pin the side princess part too, just to make sure they're on the same level. Once I'm done with the pinning, I'm going to cut it out. Please note that the fabric should be on fold while doing this. After pinning down the fabric, the next thing to do is to cut it out. And as you can see, I've added seam allowance to the side, but at the neck I didn't add any seam allowance because I did so in the at the side panel. I'm adding 1 inch of seam allowance by this, but for the side I'm going to sew the princess, that I'll be adding only half an inch. And I'll go ahead and notch at the parts I marked while drafting so that the pieces will match up easily while I'm sewing. For the back, I also want the design to be vertical, so I'm placing it that way. And please take note of the grain line. Remember the modification we made earlier on, just follow that green line so that you obtain the best result. I've gone ahead to cut because I added seam allowance to the pattern. That's why you're not seeing me add any while cutting. After cutting out the main bodies, I went ahead to cut out the lining for turning of the fabrics. So I started with the peplum, and I'm going to use my pins to pin it down just to make sure it is secure. Usually, it's advisable to make the lining about 1/8 or 1/4 inch shorter than the main fabric. So once I'm done pinning, I'm going to go ahead and sew, but while sewing, I'll be using my hemming gum to stitch at once so that when I'm ironing, to make the edges seal. The front part is where I'm going to be using the hairstay. I've gone ahead to cut out the hairstay, and I'll be ironing the shiny parts on it just to give it that pop look. I went ahead to sew the front and the back parts, and then joined it together with the peplum part. That's after I had done them using the lining, and then my blouse was ready. This